Warm dust rolled along the landing field when Evan stepped off the small cargo shuttle with his satchel and a stack of delivery tags clipped to his jacket. He had flown all night across a quiet stretch of stars to bring emergency water filters to a district that had been drinking brine for a week. The sun over Starport Nerith had a pale ring and the air tasted like old stone. People moved with a slow rhythm to save energy. Even the little service drone seemed to hum lower than usual, as if sound itself was careful not to waste strength. Evan paused at the bottom of the ramp and checked his crate list again. There were 10 boxes of filters, each box packed with simple tools and a paper manual in trade. He liked paper. Paper never lost charge. He ran a hand across the nearest crate to make sure the seal tape was tight. Then he felt for the small cord at his neck. The metal crest was warm from his skin, the shape familiar to his fingers. It had belonged to his grandmother. She had called it a good luck charm and never said more. He wore it because he missed her calm voice when deadlines grew sharp. He moved toward the freight corridor and joined a thin line of travelers. The security gate ahead looked friendly enough. The posts were carved with vine patterns and small birds. A row of alien guards stood at ease with long spears that were more ceremonial than dangerous. Their armor plates were matte and a little scuffed, like tools that had been used often and cared for well. Even their helmets were shaped to look less harsh, with smooth brow lines and short crests, like folded leaves. A sign in trade and local script blinked above the gate. It said to declare seed stock, live animals, or sacred objects. Evan glanced at his crates that held nothing sacred, only filters and bolts and wrench sets. He stepped forward when it was his turn. He smiled at the guard at the scanner and lifted his delivery slate. The guard's eyes were the cool color of river clay. He scanned the slate, scanned the crate, and nodded. Purpose of visit, the guard asked in careful trade. Humanitarian delivery, Evan said. He kept his voice steady and friendly. Drought support, District East 7. Length of stay. Same day, Evan said. He did not add that he hoped to lift back out before sunset, because night flights cost more. The guard checked a box on his console and gestured to the security arch. Please pass through. Evan walked under the arch. A gentle tone sounded. A small light near the guard's wrist flashed amber. It was not the hard red that meant danger. It was a soft alert that meant check again. The guard looked at the console, then at Evan. He scanned the cargo man's belt clip, his satchel buckle, his wristband, his boots. Amber again. The guard finally said, neck chain. Evan touched his collar. The charm, he said. Old family thing. He held it up so the scanner could read it. The metal was a little dented, like something that had gone through many years and many pockets. The guard leaned forward, then straightened and made a small gesture to his left. 2 other guards stepped closer. One of them was younger, her helmet, visor raised. Her eyes were very sharp. When she saw the crest, her mouth parted as if a quiet wind had moved through her. She did not speak at once. The older guard cleared his throat and asked for verbal permission to handle the charm. May I? He said, and kept his hand open and low to show respect. Yes, Evan said. He was calm. He knew the best way through a gate was to be simple and polite. The guard lifted the crest by its cord, not touching the metal itself. The younger guard stepped closer again. The light on the console shifted from amber to a steady white bar that did not belong to any routine check. The older guard looked at the white bar with a crease between his brows. The younger guard remained very still. What is this? The older guard said in his own language. The younger guard answered in the same tongue, then switched to trade so Evan could understand. It is a crest of guest right, she said. The old promise. Evan blinked and tried to place the words. He had studied many customs in his work. People liked it when visitors took time to read their signs and greet their elders. He knew how to bow with a hand over the heart in some places, and how to remove shoes in others. Guest right. He had heard the phrase once in a story about shelter during a dust storm, but he did not know it well. It was my grandmother's, he said. She was a pilot too. She did a lot of relief runs. She called it a luck charm. I did not know it meant anything here. The younger guard looked at Evan's face as if she were measuring a memory she had learned as a child against a real person, now standing alive in front of her. What is your grandmother's name? She asked. Maris Tal, Evan said. She flew old long-haul routes, patched up landing gears mid-air, argued with dock clerks and never left a place dirty if she could help it. At the name, the younger guard's eyes softened, then grew wet, then steadied. She turned to the older guard and spoke softly in their language, a tone that was half report, half reverence. The older guard straightened. He lifted his hand to the line and made a short gesture for the travelers behind to pause. He stepped out and stood in front of Evan in a respectful stance. "Courier Evan," he said, reading the slate. "Please come with us to a quiet room while we confirm something. Your cargo will be watched and will not be harmed." Evan nodded. He glanced back at the 10 crates and the little printed picture of a child washing hands that the manufacturer stamped on each box. He did not like delays when thirst waited, but he also knew that some doors opened only when you stood still, for a moment. He stayed calm and followed. They led him through a side walkway lit by open skylights. Vines grew along wires overhead and made thin shade. The floor stones were rough enough to grip boot soles, smooth enough not to trip rolling carts. A fountain in a corner made a quiet sound like many small beads running across a shell. The air was cooler here by a little, and Evan could smell wet clay. The quiet room had wide chairs that fit different shapes and a low table with a pattern of birds in flight. A jug of water and a small tray of grain cakes rested in the center. The younger guard looked at the food and water and then looked at Evan. That glance meant something. Evan waited. She set her spear in a rack and took off her helmet. Her hair was braided tight to the side so it would not catch on anything. She poured water for Evan and then for herself, set her cup down and then nodded to the food. "Do you accept guest water from us?" she asked in trade. Evan did not rush. He knew that first sips could be a form of trust in many places. He also knew to ask a clear question if the meaning might be precise. "Is this part of the same custom?" he asked. "Guessed right." "Yes," she said. "You can refuse, and it is fine. If you accept, we are bound to treat you with care while you remain here. We already intend to treat you with care. This would only put a word to what we will do." Evan lifted the cup and took a small sip. The water was cool and tasted faintly of stone dust and mint. He set the cup down with both hands. He felt the cool flow down his throat and into his chest, as if it washed a layer of travel grit off his heart. The older guard watched and gave a small bow. "My name is Taryn," the older guard said. "This is Sarah." "Sarah," Evan repeated, and the younger guard nodded at the sound of her name in his voice. Sarah pointed to the crest again. "Where did your grandmother find this?" she asked. Evan reached into his satchel and brought out a small voice recorder that had a chipped corner and a piece of bright tape stuck to its back with his grandmother's neat handwriting. He held it gently, as he always did, and then placed it on the table. "She left me messages from different runs," he said. "Stories, warnings, little jokes about how to talk down a cranky cargo chief. There is one where she mentions a storm and a guest mark. The recording is old, but you can hear her clearly. If it helps, we can play it." Taryn gestured as if to say, "Please do." Evan turned the recorder on. The little device hummed, and then a clean voice came through, low and steady. "Maris log," the voice said. "Storm day on Nerith. Dust like a living thing. Children and elders crowding the hangar. We made a sheltered lane from shuttle to council hall with tarps and rope. There is a custom here of guest right. If you shelter a stranger with your own arms, your scarf, your roof, they mark you and you do not pay for a meal or a glass of water while you keep your oath to help any child you see in trouble. They gave me a small crest to show to their guards if I ever return. I promise not to use it for profit. I promise to wear it only to ask safe passage if the day is dark and the work is for the weak." Evan paused the recording. He looked up. Taryn's head was bowed. Sarah had not moved at all except for a slow breath. "She told me not to tell anyone to make a fuss," Evan said softly. "She said it was not a medal, just a reminder. She never asked for honors. She asked only for help loading when her knee hurt in the cold." Sarah spoke very quietly. "I was taught this story by my mother. She learned it from her mother. The log proves it is not only a tale. The tone of her voice is the same tone my mother uses when she speaks of the first spring rain. We must call the council envoy, Taryn. Taryn nodded and stepped to a wall console. He spoke in the local language. His words were crisp and short. Lights arranged in a gentle circle lit up one by one. He came back to the table. An envoy will come, he said. It will take a little time. The council wing is not close to the port. Sarah and I will keep watch with you. If you wish to rest, you may. Warm air moved along the canal road as Evan, Sarah, and Taryn pushed the small loader toward District E7. The blue bands on the stones showed a clear path. Sunlight touched the roofs and made pale shapes dance on the ground. The water in the canal was low, but it still made a soft sound against the stone. People walked with buckets and small carts. Their faces showed both patience and worry. The red fast lane tag on the top crate drew quiet looks wherever the team passed. At the first turn, a group of workers in simple gray vests waved them through. One worker lifted a hand to Sarah and then to Evan. The man's fingers were stained with fine dust. His vest had a patch with a little droplet stitched on it. You head for 7, he asked. Yes, Evan said. Filters for clinics and homes. Good, the worker said. Clinic 1 is up the hill. Small door with a green ribbon. The sink blocks often. If you fix that first, the nurse can show others. Thank you, Sarah said. She repeated the landmarks in the local tongue for Taryn, who walked ahead to clear corners and watch for sudden carts. They reached an open plaza with shade made from vines and old sailcloth. Children sat on a low wall to share a jug and cups. An old woman watched them and hummed. Her song rose and fell like a breeze. When she saw Sarah, she lifted her chin in a greeting that held respect and care. When she saw the crest on Evan's neck, she looked curious, but not afraid. Clinic 1 sat behind a row of market stalls. Its door was small and painted with a green, ribbon shape. A line of people waited in the shade. Inside, 2 nurses moved steadily from patient to patient. A young engineer in a short coat stood by a metal sink with a toolbox open at his feet. He looked at the pipes, then at a bundle of hoses, then at the clog wrench in his hand. His brow was tight with focus. Sarah stepped in first and spoke to the room in the local language. Faces turned toward her. Then they turned toward Evan. The young engineer gave a small, uncertain nod. I am Jory, he said in trade. This sink serves most of the clinic. The old sand filter clogs. We flush it, but the taste is still sharp. You have new units. I do, Evan said. He looked to the head nurse. She had kind eyes and strong forearms. If you allow, we can place the first unit here. We will read the paper manual. We will show each step. Then you can teach others. The head nurse, who introduced herself as Leon, agreed. She made space near the sink. She wiped the counter with careful strokes. Taryn stood at the door to keep the line calm and fair. Sarah took off her helmet and set it on a chair, then rolled up her sleeves to help. Evan opened the first crate. He lifted out the filter housing, the cartridge, the bracket, and the little test kit. He set the manual on the counter. The manual had large drawings and trade text. He smiled at the neat arrows and clear labels. He had helped a friend write a version of this manual during a long week in orbit above a mining station. He always felt proud when a diagram saved time. Step 1, he said for the room. Shut off water at the valve. Put a bucket under the line. Open the line to drain. Step 2, mount the bracket. Use 2 bolts. Do not over-tighten. Step 3, seat the housing. Check the O-ring, hand tight first. Then a small quarter turn with the wrench. He spoke in a steady rhythm. Sarah translated into the local tongue, then fell into a call and response with Leon and Jory. Jory's brow eased. He cleaned the pipe ends carefully. He checked each part against the picture. When he reached for the wrench, his hands were sure. A woman near the wall asked if the unit needed electricity. Evan shook his head. It is pressure-based, he said. No power draw. If pressure is low, the flow is slow, but still safe. Another person asked how often to change the cartridge. Evan pointed to the small chart. When the test pad shifts color to this shade, he said, showing the square on the page, or when flow drops and flushing does not help. They finished the mount. Jory turned the valve a little. Water flowed into the bucket, then into the sink. It ran cloudy at first, then it cleared. Leon dipped a cup, took a small sip, and closed. Her eyes. She swallowed. The line in the room shifted as if people took a breath together. Better, Leon said. Her voice was calm but warm. Softer. The children will like this. Sarah checked the test pad. It showed the color range for safe mineral content. She held it where all could see. Taryn let 2 more people into the room and guided others back to the shade. He had a way of moving that kept order without sharpness. Evan watched the faces relax. He felt something in his own chest loosen as well. Jory wiped his hands and laughed softly. I fought this line for 2 seasons, he said. I think the line and I will be friends now. Leon took a thin wristband from her pocket. It was woven blue and white with a little knot at the center. She tied it gently around Evan's wrist. It is a small thank you, she said. We give these when a person helps the clinic in a clear way. If you do not like to wear things, you can keep it in your satchel. I like it, Evan said. He looked at the knot and thought of careful hands making it during a quiet hour. He lifted the manual. Please keep this by the sink, he said. If you make notes on the pages, other clinics will learn faster. Leon nodded. She wrote the date and the names of the helpers at the bottom of the last page. She added a short line in her own language. Later, Evan learned it said, "We drank," and our mouths rested. They moved to the next room where a small treatment chair sat near a window. A parent and child waited there. The child had a cup. Leon poured water and offered it. The child took a sip and made a small surprised face as if the taste had turned from a rough stone into a soft fruit. The parent smiled and touched the child's hair. Outside, news moved fast. A young person at the back of the line made a short video on their pocket device. They posted the scene of the filter install with a simple note. New unit at Clinic 1. Clear water. Thank you. People in the plaza began to talk. A vendor passed the word down the street. It sounded like a low song. Evan used that small wave of good feeling to do the next thing. We should leave a cartridge, stock, he said. Enough for 2 months. Teach 2 more people how to change it. Also, the old sand filter can serve as a pre-filter if we clean it and set it upstream. It will help the life of the new cartridge. Jory nodded with quick interest. He and Sarah cleaned the sand canister and set it before the new housing. The flow rate settled into a smooth line. Leon stood with the manual and read out each test. Step. She had a firm voice that carried to the door. By noon, the first crate was empty. The clinic had 1 main unit and 2 small point-of-use units in rooms where a steady flow was needed. Evan wrote the install date on a piece of tape and stuck it to each housing. He taught a girl from the line how to do the same. She printed the letters with care and smiled when the tape sat straight. They ate grain cakes in the shade and drank a cup of the new water. Taryn spoke softly with 2 district stewards who had come to help guide the next deliveries. One steward introduced himself as Haroun. He was tall and had a badge shaped like a leaf. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, he asked clear questions and then took action. The second clinic is near the schoolyard, Haroun said. After that, the community kitchen. If we reach 3 sites today, people will sleep easier. That is our plan, Sarah said. The fast lane tag holds until dusk. Evan rose and checked the loader. He felt the pleasant weight of work done, and more work waiting. He also felt the light press of time on his shoulder. A day could hold many tasks. It could not hold all tasks. He thought of the route and the streets and where the sun would be in 2 hours. He made a simple plan in his head and then put it into words for the group. Clinic 2, he said. Then the kitchen. If light holds, a set at the schoolyard. Tap. We share manuals at each site. We leave 2 spare cartridges at each and a bag of small O-rings. They set out. The street between the clinics was narrow but lively. Market booths sold simple food and tools. Music from a hand drum moved across the stones. A boy ran up with a basket and walked a while beside them. He pointed at the crest on Evan's neck. "My grandmother told me the story of the storm," the boy said. "She said a pilot tied ropes across the hangar. She said we tied our breath to that rope and walked through dust." "I know that story now," Evan said. "I wear this crest because of that day. I am glad your grandmother told you." The boy nodded, and then peeled away at the next corner with a little wave. Clinic 2 sat under a wide roof. A bell hung at the door. People in line gave space when they saw the guards. Inside, a teacher stood with a little group of older students. She wanted them to see the install so they could help their homes. Leon had sent a message ahead and the room was ready. This time, Evan asked the students to read the manual aloud in turns. Each student took a step, showed the picture, and set. Apart in place, Jory and Sarah guided their hands when needed. Evan stood back and watched. He liked seeing the line between a page and a person become a skill. At the end, the teacher asked a clear question. "What happens if the cartridge is dirty and we do not have a new one that day?" she asked. Evan held up a cloth bag. "There is a simple rinse that can buy you a little time," he said. He showed how to flush the cartridge gently and how to let it dry in clean air. "It does not replace a new one," he said, "but it helps for a short while. Always use a fresh cartridge when you can." Afternoon light lay flat across the palace road when Sarah and Taryn guided Evan through a series of stone arches toward the council wing. The air grew cooler under the arches. A thin stream ran along the base of one wall to keep dust down. Guards, at each turn, gave a small bow to Sarah and Taryn. They glanced at Evan's crest and then returned to their posts with calm faces. The city was tense, yet the council hall still held a sense of steady rhythm, like a heart that refused to rush. They reached a wide courtyard. Vines climbed high trellises and threw gentle shade across the stones. A bell hung from a simple frame. It sounded once as a clerk pulled the rope. The single tone meant a hearing would begin soon. Another clerk came forward with a board and a set of tags. "Spears to the rack," he said in careful trade. "Guests to the table," names recorded. Tyron set his spear in the rack and unlatched the strap from his shoulder. Sarah did the same. She kept her helmet under her arm and stood close to Evan. The clerk wrote their names and the hour. He looked at the small recorder in Evan's hand and made a respectful nod. "Envoy Illis is inside," the clerk said. "Archivist Rowan is preparing the witness bench. Please enter." The hearing chamber was round. Low windows let in light without glare. Carved birds circled the upper walls. Their wings were simple arcs, but the lines carried a feeling of lift. At the center, a plain table stood with 4 chairs. A ring of benches ran around the wall. A few citizens already sat there, some with work aprons still on, some with shop dust on their sleeves. 2 council members stood in quiet talk near a map board. Ilis spoke with Rowan at the witness bench. When Ilis saw Sarah, Taryn, and Evan, she came forward at once. She bowed to Sarah and Taryn, then placed her hand over her heart to Evan in the small way that had become their shared greeting. "You came quickly," she said. "Thank you." "We were close," Sarah said. The message was clear. Rowan's case lay open on the bench. He had already placed the thin, clear disc on a stand. A soft light from the bench lamp made the disc glow at the edge. "May we copy the storm log now?" Rowan asked Evan. "We will return the recorder before you leave the room." "Yes," Evan said. He handed over the device. His fingers did not cling to it. He knew the recorder was safe here. More people entered. Haroon slipped in and took a bench seat. He lifted a hand to show he had left the loader and stock in good care. Jory was not with him. That meant Jory was working, which was right. The cook from the community kitchen sat with 2 helpers near the doorway. They smelled faintly of grain and steam and mint. Kel sat 3 benches up, neat vest, pocket lens ready. His expression was polite and sharp. The bell sounded again. The room settled into quiet. Illis stepped to the center table. 2 counselors came to stand with her. One was tall with a silver pin shaped like a leaf vein. The other wore a thin chain across his collar. We call this hearing for a single purpose, Illis said. To speak plainly on guest right, on rumor, and on the work of the day. The courier, Evan Tal, bears a crest from the storm year. He came to deliver water filters. He is under guard for safety. He is under watch because some fear grows in the streets. We will hear facts. Rowan lifted the recorder. Maris Tal's voice filled the chamber, steady and clean even after so many years. Her words about the storm and the rope lane moved across. The room like water moving along a channel cut long ago. When the log ended, there was a light hush. The birds on the wall seemed to listen too. Illis nodded to the clear disk. The tiny bird image rose for a moment within the stone, then faded. The imprint matches council alloy, she said. The crest is true. The tall counselor with the leaf pin spoke next. Engineer Ova, report on the hold order and the relays. Ova stepped forward with her small kit. The hold on filter installs was lifted after inspection, she said. Units are passive, pressure neutral. They improve taste and remove fine grit. As for pressure drops, 3 relays in the east line showed short, neat dips at even times. The pattern suggests intent or a coordinated fault. We continue to check. She placed a simple chart on the table. The lines dipped like shallow steps. No one needed a degree to read it. Was the courier near any relay at the time of a dip? The counselor asked. Near post 12 after the fact, Ova said. In the open, with Steward Haroon present, we recorded all steps. I witnessed no interference. Kell lifted his hand politely from the bench. Illis allowed him to speak. Public worry is not only about relays, he said. It is also about control. Some think the crest grants authority over civic systems. A post on the channel shows the courier pointing at a valve. People see a hand near their water and feel uneasy. Evan did not bristle. He kept his shoulders loose. He kept his hands open on the table where all could see them. I showed a cleaner how water moves through a pipe, he said. I stood in a clinic. I was not at a control cabinet. We made taste better. We taught. That is all. Ova gave a short nod. That matches my notes, she said. Illis looked around the room. The faces on the benches were alert and fair. No one shouted. No one clapped. It was a working city. People wanted clear paths, not drama. We affirm guest right today, Illis said. It gives safe passage for work that helps the weak. It gives no power to command lines or open gates. The crest will not be used to press or to profit. It will be used to move help. The courier accepts this, we confirm it. Sarah let out a breath she had been holding. Taryn's jaw softened. Heron's shoulders dropped by a finger's width. Kell wrote something on his slate with neat strokes. Then a tone sounded on 2 devices at once, Ova's and Illis's. It was not the single bell of a hearing. It was a narrow, urgent chime. Ova looked down, read, then looked up. Conduit 9 reports a fresh drop near the children's clinic, she said. Flow at risk. 2 nearby posts show noise on the sensor. Line. Crew is 10 minutes away if the streets are clear. The room did not panic, it focused. Illis glanced to Sarah and Taryn. Escort Evan to a side chamber, she began. Evan stood. His voice was steady. Send me with the crew, he said. I can carry parts. I can hold a light. I can show the test pads to parents in the street. So they see we work for them, not against them. Illis weighed the choice in a heartbeat. She glanced at the benches where parents sat and at Haroon, who had managed tension all day with quiet hands. She looked at Sarah, whose eyes said she would keep this guest safe. Very well, Illis said. Under guard, under my authority. Engineer. Ova, take them. Kell raised a finger. If he goes to a relay again, rumor will grow, he said smoothly. Even a helper's hand can become a story. Then film everything, Illis said without heat. Show steps, show badges, show the manual. We do not hide when we help. The hearing paused. The crew formed fast. Ova slung her kit. Haroon gathered a small coil of rope and a bag of wedge blocks. Sarah fastened her helmet. Taryn checked a short list and nodded. Evan picked up a spare bracket and a hand lamp. Rowan placed the recorder back in Evan's palm. For the phrase, Rowan said softly. If any legacy seal is involved. We do not expect it, but sometimes old systems hide in plain walls. They moved. The streets between the council wing and the clinic ran under galleries and over short bridges. Voices followed them. Some voices called blessings. Some asked questions. Sarah kept pace at Evan's side. Taryn walked 2 steps ahead, eyes moving from faces to corners to rooftops. Ova trotted at an even rhythm that wasted no energy. Haroon spotted a narrow lane and cut time by 2 turns. A small group of apprentices fell in behind them, pale coats flapping, tools clanking softly against belts. They reached Conduit 9's access hatch. It stood in a pocket square beside a school yard. Children waited with their teachers on the far side of a low wall, watching with wide eyes but staying behind the line the teachers had chalked on the stone. A sign over the clinic door said, "Children first." The faucet beside the door gave a thin, stuttering trickle. Ova opened the cabinet with her key in full view. She put her badge on top of the cabinet where the lens could see it. Kel had arrived somehow with the crowd. He held his pocket lens high. Other citizens held theirs too. The square looked like a circle of small moons, each eye open to the work. "Announce. Steps," Ova said. "I will," Haroon answered. He had a voice that carried without shouting. Engineer Ova opens the cabinet. Guard Taryn watches the lane. Guard Sarah keeps the crowd safe. Courier Evan holds light and parts at engineer order. Steward will read out numbers. Ova clipped a meter to the test point and called the reading. Haroon repeated it. Sarah repeated it in the local tongue. A teacher repeated it for the children, like a game. Pressure 8. Flow low. Sensor channel noisy. "Look here." Ova pointed to a thin wire bundle. The outer wrap showed a small scuff. A grit grain had cut the skin and let in dust. "Replace wrap. Reset connector." She worked with clean, quick motions. Evan held the light to show the exact angle. He kept his hand still. He called out nothing unless Ova asked. He had learned long ago that good help was quiet help. The Bram. Crowd watched his hand as much as they watched the tools. They saw it stay steady and open. They saw it pass apart and then return to his side. Ova finished the wrap and tapped the meter. "Noise cleared," she said. "Flow should rise, but there is still a small drop. Check the bend upstream." A young apprentice named Mary ran to the upstream bend and found a shallow build of sand in a low spot. "Here," she called. "The old pipe tilts wrong after last season's work." Evening moved in like soft cloth laid over the city. The heat eased. Long shadows reached across the canal road and touched the blue bands that marked the service path. Evan, Sarah, and Taryn stopped at a public tap where neighbors gathered at dusk. A chalkboard hung beside the faucet. Someone had written the day's notes in tidy lines: boil time, clinic hours, and a reminder to bring cups from home. Children sat on the low wall with feet swinging. A teacher held a bag of clean cups and smiled at the guards with a quiet, tired welcome. Evan set a copy of the paper manual in a clear sleeve next to the board. He added a strip of tape at the top and bottom so wind would not curl it. He drew a simple arrow to the color pad chart and wrote 3 words beneath it in trade: check, change, cheer. The children repeated the words softly like a friendly game. Sarah scanned the plaza with careful eyes and then tapped the side of her helmet to open the guard channel. A short exchange in the local language passed between her and a post near the council wing. She lowered her hand and looked at Evan and Taryn. "Engineer. Ova reports 2 more brief dips," she said. "Not deep, but too neat. They sit on even minutes again. She thinks someone is nudging sensor lines to keep fear alive. The council asks us to prepare the mirrors." Taryn lifted his head toward the nearest shrine tower. Its mirrors caught the last light of the day and sent it back in small square pieces. "We will need a team on every hill," he said. 2 per tower, 1 to polish, 1 to signal. We will need simple codes. No one can learn a book in an hour. Evan felt that small thought inside him become a plan. "Envoy Elis said the mirrors once made sunlight walk across the city," he said. "Archivist Rowan knows the old code, words. We do not need the full set. We only need 3 or 4 clear signals to calm people and help crews. Ready? Help here. Flow safe. Send runner. We can do that. Let us ask, Sarah said. If the envoy agrees, we will gather teams now. They moved quickly back along the blue bands. Dusk softened corners. Kitchen doorways glowed. Laughter floated up from a courtyard where a family ate under a vine roof. In the old hangar square, the bell sounded twice in quick strokes. It was not an alarm. It was a call to meet and listen. Inside the council hall, a light had been set above the map board. Envoy Illis stood beside it with Rowan and Ova. Haroon had chalk dust on his sleeves and a length of clean cloth over his shoulder. Kel stood with a clear view, his pocket lens steady, but not intrusive. The old woman from the plaza sat near the door with a cup of mint water and her quiet, strong gaze. Illis looked up when Sarah, Taryn, and Evan entered. "We will bring the mirrors back to work," she said without preface. "Rowan will give a short code. Ova will tie that code to relay work. Haran will place stewards on towers. Sarah and Taryn will hold lanes open. Evan, your role is hands." And calm words. "You are very good at both." Rowan pulled a thin board from his case and wrote 4 symbols with a wax stick. He kept the strokes broad and bold. "1 flash," he said, pointing to the first mark. "Ready at this tower. 2 flashes slow. Help here. 3 flashes quick. Flow safe. 4 flashes slow. Send a runner. We will place a 5th if needed for crew moving, but these 4 will carry most of what tonight may ask." Ova nodded. "I will tell crews to look to towers," she said. "If a tower calls help, a nearby team will go. If a tower calls safe, the clinic or kitchen will post the pad color and the crowd will know the truth at once." Haroon rubbed the chalk on his hands like a farmer testing soil. "I will send stewards with cloth and polish," he said. "Children like to shine things. We will ask them to help. Adults will watch and keep them careful." Taryn rolled his shoulder once to settle his spear strap. "Sarah and I will walk the line," he said. "We will keep order without pushing. If anyone tries to block a tower, we will ask them to stand aside. If they do not, we will move them with words and the shape of a quiet line behind us." Kel lifted his lens slightly. "And if someone says the crest intends to control the towers," he asked, voice even. Illis answered without pause. "Say what we do out loud," she said. "That has been our strength all day. Show the code paper. Show the old woman's hands polishing a mirror. Show Engineer Ova at a cabinet. Show Steward Haroon with chalk. Show Guard Sarah saying ready in the open. If anyone speaks fear, let them do it against a wall of plain work." Kel inclined his head. Something in his face had shifted since the morning. It was not a full change. It was like a door cracked open to let air move between 2 rooms. They moved. The plan traveled ahead of them in short messages carried by runners and slates. Neighbors fetched cloths. Children filled small buckets. Stewards tied ribbons to towers so people could find them quickly. The old woman walked to the first tower and laid her hand on the base. "Wake up," she said to the iron in a voice. That sounded like a song for bread rising. At Tower Hill, Evan stood with a boy who had drawn the filter tube earlier. The boy's name was Rafi. He took a soft rag and wiped a circle on the mirror with the care of a person polishing a gift. The mirror brightened in his hands. Sarah watched with a smile that reached her eyes. Rowan unrolled a strip of cloth with the 4 symbols printed large. He handed it to Rafi. "You are the keeper of the signs," he said. "When we say a number, you show the mark to people on the ground. When the mirror flashes, you call the word. Ready. Help here. Flow safe. Send runner." Rafi nodded and set his jaw in a dignified, comical way that made adults grin without laughing at him. He took his post beside the lever and the shining face. At the same tower, a narrow brass plate sat just inside the rail. It had a short line in the local language, worn and smooth. Rowan brushed dust from it with his sleeve. "Old seal," he said. "It does not bar the mirror from turning. It only wakes a small lamp that helps crews line up across the city when night comes fast. We may not need it if the sky stays clear, but we should ready it. The lamp takes a phrase spoken into the tube here. A simple pledge was used in the storm. Year. Sarah leaned to look. Do you remember the words? She asked. Rowan shook his head. The archive holds 3 forms, he said. One was for roof shelter. One was for food brought to a child. One was for runners carrying news. The lamp phrase could be any of the 3 on our towers. In the storm logs, the pilot's voice says she promised safe passage for work for the week. But that is not the short line that wakes lamps. The elders said it once at the first mirror after dusk. Evan felt his hand go to his satchel. The recorder warmed his palm. He had copied 2 more logs before leaving the hall. One had a little laugh from his grandmother when rope knots held under a strong gust. One had the steady cadence of her reading back a pledge she had heard so she would not forget it. He had not played that second one yet. He did not want to stop the flow of work. Now with mirrors ready and the sky sliding fast toward blue might be the time. Before he could speak, a runner came up the hill, breath quick but even. East Market Tower ready, she said. Canal Bend Tower ready. Rivergate Tower needs polish. We go there now. Haroon waved her on and turned to the hill crew. Signal 1 flash, he said. Let the city see the line wake. Rafi gripped the lever. Evan steadied the mirror face. Sarah stood at the rail and looked across rooftops for the next tower. Taryn watched the lane to keep the steps clear. Rafi pushed the lever down. The mirror tilted. It caught the last strong strip of sunlight between buildings and sent it out in a wide, clean beam. The beam reached the next tower. A flash answered, then another at the canal bend. A ripple of flashes moved like a whisper around a circle. People in squares and doorways looked up and smiled. The old woman at the base of the first tower laughed quietly and clapped once. Again, Haroon said. 2 flashes, slow, only if you need help. They sent the pattern twice, and then let the mirrors rest. The city had seen enough to remember. The code was simple, it would work. Ova's voice came on Sarah's wrist in a short, crisp tone. Noise climbing again, she said. Not the same cabinet, a different one each time. Crews moving, keep. Towers lit if dark comes quick. As if the city heard her, wind shifted. Dust that had rested in corners all day rose in small puffs and began to travel in bands along the streets. It was not a deep storm. It was a messenger from the hills, a hand that wanted to push at doors and test hinges. The sky darkened a shade. The line where day ended and evening began came closer to the roofs. Haroon looked at Rowan and then at the brass plate. We should wake the lamp, he said. Even if we do not need it, we are better for the doing. Rowan nodded. He touched the little speaking tube beside the plate. The phrase, he said softly. Which one did the elders use? Evan pulled the recorder and pressed the button. Maris Tal's voice filled the small circle of the tower platform. It was not loud. It did not need to be. It carried the steadiness of a person who could tie knots without looking and find a rogue bolt by feel. The log started mid-sentence as if she had been talking, and then remembered to save the words. And they had me say it with them, Maris said. Short and plain, guest water, guest roof, guest road. Share what you shelter. Rowan's eyes lit. That is the runner's line, he said. They adapted it to towers, water, roof, road. It matches the 3 ways a city cares for life. Sarah smiled. Short. Easy to teach, she said. Good for tonight. Rowan leaned toward the tube and spoke with respect. Not magic, just care. Guest water. Guest. Wind pushed dust along the ridge. Evan stood at the tower rail with the recorder in his hand and the little brass plate at his elbow. The lamp under the mirror flickered, brave but thin. He could speak the short line again and hope it would hold. Or he could use the longer cadence his grandmother had taught storm children in the old log. That cadence was made for nights like this, when a city needed to hold steady with simple words said in the same rhythm from roof to roof. He drew a calm breath and chose the longer cadence. He pressed play, listened for a heartbeat to Maris Tal's tone, then leaned to the speaking tube. Guest water, guest roof, guest road, he said in a steady pace. Share what you shelter. Hold what you carry, pass the light forward. The words were plain. They fit in the mouth like round stones. He spoke them once, then again the same way, with the same gentle spaces between each part. Sarah kept the hand lamp steady. Taran stood so his shoulder blocked the sharpest gust. Harun kept a palm on the mirror face with the exact pressure that held without forcing. The lamp steadied. It grew a shade warmer, like a small hearth protected from wind by a cupped hand. A second tiny sigil glowed beside the winged bird on the brass plate. It looked like 3 short lines in a row. Rowan nodded with quiet satisfaction. "Storm cadence," he said. The elders had a way to lock the lamp when dust tried to steal the last light. "You found it." Raffi grinned and bounced on his toes. He held up the sign cloth and whispered the words to himself so he would not forget. His voice carried like a thread, and tied to a dozen small voices below as other children copied the rhythm. Sarah listened to her wristband. "Engineer Ova at Post 7, she reported. "Crew on scene. North Quarter Tower signals 3 quick." Again. "We will wait for her call." They did not wait with idle hands. The wind made powder of the top layer of dust and placed that powder on every flat surface. Sarah and Raffi polished. Harun sent one slow flash to say ready. Across the roofs, other towers answered. The city looked like a ring of quiet stars, each one tended by hands and rags and small lamps. Ova's voice came through in a band of static that sounded like sugar poured onto a plate. Her words were clear enough. "Cabinet clean," she said. "Sensor line wrapped tight. Pressure and flow steady after reset." Then noise returns at the even minute. Found a small coil stuck to the cabinet's outer wall behind a planter box. It hums on a cheap timer, harmless on its own, annoying together, designed to make people look at the meter and doubt. Crew removing devices now. A clerk with a cracked sun pin walked away when we arrived. Guards across the lane have him waiting for questions. We will speak with calm and record every step. Harun let out a slow breath. "So the dips had help," he said. Rowan's mouth thinned, not in anger, but in a kind of sadness for work wasted on tricks. "Fear is easy to sell when the air is dry," he said softly. "We will answer with steady hands and clear words." Sarah raised the cloth with 2 slow bars. Raffi flashed the mirror twice. "Help here." A young team ran down toward the next tower, where another crew would check planters and rails with patient fingers. Down in the square, Kel stood with his lens lowered again. He was not chasing anyone. He was filming the board by the tap, where the used test pads hung beside the chart. He spoke in a plain voice for his channel. "Pads are posted," he said. "Shade matches safe color. Engineer note lifted the hold. Towers carry messages. People can see each step. If anyone edits clips tonight, compare them to this board. If worry grows, come and read." The old woman from the plaza listened and smiled. Not at Kel, but at the board itself. She had posted many things in her life. Seed lists, blessing days, a drawing of a lost goat once, with a child's careful picture. She liked boards that told the truth. A runner arrived from the North Quarter and called up the hill. He had dust on his knees and a bright light in his eyes. "Found 3 more coils," he said. "All stuck with the same cheap gum, all set to even minutes." A second man with a cracked sun pin waited 2 streets over and sent little messages. During each dip, the coils make noise. The messages make fear. Both make a plan. "Names?" Taran asked in the local tongue, steady and official. "Given," the runner said. "Badges checked. They go to the hall now, not in chains, but with 2 guards and a steward to record facts. The coils go to Engineer Ova with time codes. The city will see the simple truth." The runner turned and went again, light and fast. Sarah stood beside Evan and watched the mirror line. The dust band thinned. Stars showed in strips between roofs. The little lamp under the mirror held steady, warmed by the storm cadence and the seated connector. "I like those words," she said. "Hold what you carry. Pass the light forward. They sound like the way my mother taught me to lift a pot and then hand it to a neighbor." Evan smiled. "My grandmother made me say them when I was small," he said. "She said a person should hear their own voice speak care." They stayed at the tower until the worst of the dust passed. Signals moved across the city in a pattern. of clean flashes. Ready. Help here. Flow safe. Send runner. Children learned the code faster than adults, as children often do. They held cloths high and whispered the marks to younger ones. They watched the mirror face like a living thing and were proud when it shone. When the sky deepened from blue to a soft ink, Haroon checked his slate. Reports in, he said. Kitchens posted pads. Clinics posted pads. 2 taps at the school. Yard installed by students with a teacher watching. Ova has the coil boxes. The guards have names and time logs. The council asks the Tower Hill crew to return to the hall. They will speak while the city is calm. They close the lamp with care, not like a door slammed in a storm, but like a book folded at the end of a good chapter. Rafi wrote the 4 symbols on a small piece of paper and tucked it into his pocket like treasure. He made a serious bow that was still a little funny because of his big grin. Sarah ruffled his hair gently and thanked him as if he were a full apprentice with a badge, not a boy with dust on his cheeks. The walk back to the council wing was quiet. People in doorways lifted hands. No one asked for speeches. A city that has drunk clear water after brine does not crave many words. It craves sleep and a plan for the morning. In the hearing room, the benches were full again, but the sound in the air was different from earlier. It had a soft weight, like a blanket placed over a child who has already drifted off. Illis stood at the center table with Ova and Rowan. 2 guards in plain coats stood near the wall with the 2 clerks who wore cracked sunpins. The clerks did not shout. They looked tired and a little ashamed. One of them held a small cloth bundle that likely had held a coil before a guard asked politely to put it on the table for all to see. Ova spoke first. She set one of the small coil boxes on the table and opened it. Inside lay a wire wrapped around a little metal core and a cheap timer chip, the kind used to blink holiday lights. She did not make a show of it. She named each piece in a steady voice. This device makes a small hum, she said. If you place it near a sensor wire, the meter reads noise. If you place many at once, people think a pattern means a plan. They hurry toward fear. The devices are not strong enough to move a valve. They only make numbers look messy. She held up a sheet with times. The even minutes marched down the page. These are the times the dips were reported, she said. They matched the timer chips. We removed the coils. The noise stopped. We will check cabinets again at dawn. If we find more, we will remove them too. The pattern will end. Rowan showed the little lamp sigil tracing he had taken at the tower. He explained the storm cadence in a way that made it sound like a recipe anyone could follow. Old seals do not hide power, he said. They remind tired hands what to do when light grows thin. A city stands on such reminders. Illis turned to the 2 clerks. She did not raise her voice. Why? She asked them. The first clerk lifted his chin and then let it fall again. I thought guest right made people ignore rules, he said. My mentor says oaths from the Yam. Past pull us backward. We were told to prove the old promise makes trouble, so the council would end it. We were told a careful show of faults would do. No one would be hurt. We were wrong about the day. People worried. We are sorry. The second clerk nodded. I held a phone and wrote short lines at the even minute, he said. I wanted the city to listen to me. Now I wish I had listened first. No one shouted. The cook from the community kitchen made a quiet sound in her throat, the kind a person makes when a cake falls in the oven for no good reason. It was not anger. It was tiredness and a wish for better choices. Illis spoke in a tone that made room for law and for repair at the same time. You will pay fines and work with the engineer crews for a season, she said. You will carry coils from cabinets under Ova's orders until both your arms and your ears understand the difference between a number and a plan. You will clean mirrors. You will write the code words on boards. You will not touch a relay again without a badge and a steward beside you. Guest right will not end because someone is clever with a timer. It will be strengthened with clear steps. She looked at Kel. Put that message as your first post, she said. No edits. The city deserves a straight line. Kel raised his lens and recorded the words without trimming or flourishes. He also turned and filmed the pad board a final time, and the small coil on the table so eyes at home would see the thing that made fear and could.